My brother is an honest man.
Venye namjua, he can't even kill a fly.
Major Peter Mugure has been arrested by DCI detectives in Nanyuki.
In an autopsy conducted on the bodies of Joyce Syombua and her children Shanice Maua and Prince Michael, believed to have been murdered by her lover, Major Peter Mugure, has revealed the brutality with which they met their death.
In 2019, the cases of Ivy Wangeshi and Mary Kamangara made headlines, highlighting the rising incidences of violence against women in Kenya. Tragically, by the end of the same year, the murder of Joyce Syombua and her two children, Shanice and Prince Michael, also garnered significant attention. Their lives were brutally taken by Major Peter Maura Mugure, Syombua's ex-husband and the children's father. Today we dive into this case full of so many twists and turns, providing you with a detailed account of the events as they are alleged to have occurred. Welcome to Silent Shadows. As always, if you appreciate our true crime storytelling, support our fortnightly series by liking and subscribing. Together we uncover compelling tales of crimes and mysteries in Kenya and beyond, presenting well-balanced narratives that respects the victims and their loved ones. Joyce Syombua was born on 9th May 1988 and was the firstborn in a family of 5 children, born to Elizabeth Maua Malombe. Syombua grew up in the Kayole neighborhood with her family. Coincidentally, young Peter Maura Mugure lived in the same neighborhood with his mother, Hannah Mugure, and his siblings. Peter was known by his family as quiet and very studious. He excelled academically, attending Upper Hill High School in Nairobi before moving on to Egerton University, where he studied civil engineering. Although the exact timing of their first meeting is unclear, Peter introduced Syombua to his mother Hannah Mugure in 2005 as the girl he intended to marry. At the time, Syombua was just 17, while Peter, who was about 5 years older than her, was around 22 years old. Syombua and Peter would continue their relationship through their schooling years, with Peter visiting Syombua at her high school during visiting days. Peter later joined the Kenya Defence Forces KDF on 21st January 2007, and despite his enlistment in the army, he continued to see Syombua and was also quite determined to complete his studies. Peter would go on to graduate from Egerton University the following year in 2008, while Syombua completed high school soon thereafter, and the two lovebirds got married. The couple became pregnant a few months later, but sadly just 8 months into their marriage, they separated, and Syombua moved back in with her mother. On Sunday, 1st November 2009, Syombua welcomed an adorable baby girl whom she named Shanice Maua. In spite of their marriage falling apart, Joyce and Peter's relationship was on and off over the years, and in 2013, Syombua became pregnant again and gave birth to a bouncing baby boy on Tuesday, 3rd December 2013, and she named him Prince Michael. Unfortunately, following the birth of their son, Peter denied he was Prince Michael's father and expressed doubts about Shanice being his daughter. As a result, Peter failed to provide the much-needed financial support for the two kids. In turn, Syombua had to work 2 jobs, at a bakery in Kayole and selling women's clothes on the side to support both children. Having had enough, she sought financial support from Peter Maura Mugure through the courts in 2018. By that time, Peter had moved on and had started a new family with another woman who works at the Kenya Air Force and had 2 additional children. The child support case continued until 2019. As expected, the Chief Magistrate's Court at Kilimani ordered a DNA test for Shanice and Prince Michael to determine their paternity. Shockingly, Syombua's mother alleges that a week before the DNA test was done, Peter Mugure attempted to poison the 2 children. According to her account of events to reporters, Shanice and Prince Michael were walking home from school when they ran into a woman who claimed to be a teacher at their school. The woman allegedly bought Shanice and Prince Michael a soda and mandazis. and she opened the soda for them. Luckily, Prince Michael, the youngest child, reportedly noticed that the woman added something resembling black tea to the soda. The children did not drink the soda at the spot, but took it home. When they arrived, they went to their neighbor's house to collect the keys that their mother Syombua had left behind, and left the soda and mandazis at the neighbor's place, while they went to change clothes at their own house. Allegedly, the neighbor took a sip of the soda and she passed out, but she was not seriously harmed. A week later, on 9th August 2019, the DNA test confirmed that Peter Mugure was indeed the father of Shanice and Prince Michael, and the Chief Magistrate Court in Kilimani ruled that Peter was to pay 25,000 Kenyan shillings monthly for the children's upkeep, in addition to catering for their rent and school fees. The court also granted Syombua primary custody of the children, but allowed Peter visitation rights, mandating Syombua to facilitate his visits whenever he wished. Unfortunately, this ruling seemed to push Peter to a breaking point, since just a few weeks later, he committed a heinous act, taking the lives of Syombua and their 2 children. On Thursday, 24th October 2019, Peter called Syombua, inviting her and the kids to the Laikipia Air Base in Nanyuki, where he, a major in the Kenya Air Force, worked as the head of the Command and Leadership School. He claimed he really wanted to see his children and for them to celebrate Shanice's 11th birthday, which was just a few days away. Later that day, Syombua told her mother she was going to visit Peter in Nanyuki with their 2 kids, 10-year-old Shanice and 5-year-old Prince Michael. Syombua's mother was very apprehensive about the visit, worried for their safety, and she suggested that instead of traveling to Nanyuki, Peter should come to Nairobi to see the kids. However, Syombua was determined to follow the court order that entitled Peter to see his kids, and she explained this to her mother. The following day, Friday, 25th October 2019, her mother reluctantly saw her daughter and grandchildren off. Tragically, this would be the last time she saw them alive. Syombua, Shanice, and Prince Michael arrived in Nanyuki that night, and Syombua sent her best friend, Farizana Kateu, an SMS at 10:22 p.m. to let her know they had arrived at the airbase safely. Subsequent texts between the 2 friends revealed tension in Syombua and Peter's relationship. For example, at 12:17 a.m., Farizana sent a message to Syombua saying she could not sleep until Syombua reassured her that they were safe. Syombua replied they were safe and that Shanice and Prince Michael were asleep, but Peter was still awake and upset because Syombua had refused to shower with him. The 2 friends would say goodnight at 12:23 a.m., and in a foreboding message, Farizana advised Syombua to sleep with one eye open. The following morning, on Saturday, 26th October 2019 at 9:14 a.m., Farizana messaged Syombua to check in on her and the kids. Syombua told her friend that they had slept well and were having breakfast. She mentioned that she and Peter had slept like brother and sister, which according to Syombua was the best way for them to move forward. Things took a turn at 11:21 a.m. when Syombua texted Farizana saying that after coming out of the shower, she discovered Peter had left with Shanice and Prince Michael. When she called Peter to ask where they were, he told her he had taken them on a tour of the airbase. She told Farizana since it had been an hour since Peter shared this information with her, she was quite worried. Syombua then texted Farizana a few minutes later, telling her that Peter had just walked in. One thing Syombua failed to mention to her best friend was that Peter had come back without the children. Syombua would disclose this information to Farizana when she called her that evening around 6:30 p.m. Syombua told Farizana that she was very worried because when she asked Peter where the kids were, he had told her they were fine and that he had taken them to a place he didn't disclose so he could have some private time with Syombua to resolve their issues. Unfortunately, in the middle of their conversation, Farizana's phone ran out of airtime. When she texted Syombua to ask if the children were back, the message went unanswered, and by around 6:35 p.m., Syombua's phone was switched off. At 8 p.m., Farizana, now very concerned about Syombua's whereabouts, called Peter to inquire about her. Peter told Farizana that Syombua had left for Nairobi with the kids. Farizana found this very suspicious, since it was quite late at night, and Syombua had not planned to travel back to Nairobi with the kids so soon. Farizana questioned Peter about this, and he vaguely reassured her that there had been some unforeseen incidents at the airbase that meant Syombua and the kids could not spend the night there. When Farizana and Syombua's mother did not hear from Syombua and her two children that Saturday night, and throughout most of Sunday, 27th October 2019, they reported them missing that Sunday evening at the Soweto police post in Kayole. The police immediately launched an investigation into their disappearance, and the following day, Monday, 28th October 2019, the deputy OCS at Soweto police post contacted Peter Mugure, the last person to see Syombua, Shanice, and Prince Michael, to inquire about their whereabouts. Peter told the deputy OCS that at around 6:30 p.m. on Saturday, 26th October 2019, he had escorted Syombua, Shanice, and Prince Michael to the Nanyuki main stage and left them there waiting for a matatu to head back to Nairobi. This, according to him, was the last time he saw them. Suspiciously, after this call, Peter Mugure went to the Nanyuki police station with a friend, a fellow military man, to report Syombua and the two children as missing. On that same day, 28th October 2019, the officer at Nanyuki police station investigating the disappearance of Syombua, Shanice, and Prince Michael received a call from Syombua's best friend, Farizana. She said she had been referred to him by the deputy OCS at Soweto police post in Kayole, and explained that she had received a call from a 4NTE Matatu Sacco employee at the Nanyuki main bus stage, who informed her that they had found a techno phone in one of their matatus. The employee further noted they had retrieved Farizana's phone number from the phone, since it was the last number called, and had contacted her in an attempt to identify the owner. Farizana was able to confirm that the phone did indeed belong to her friend Syombua. Following this new lead, the investigating officer and his team went to the Nanyuki main stage, where the 4NTE Sacco offices were located, to retrieve Syombua's phone. As anticipated, they also interrogated the driver of the car in which Syombua's phone had been found. His statement revealed inconsistencies in Major Peter Mugure's account, which claimed that Syombua and the children had left Nanyuki on the night of Saturday, 26th October 2019. According to the 4NTE Matatu driver, on that night, when Syombua and the children were said to have boarded a matatu at around 6:30 p.m., he was actually in Bomet for a private event. He did not return to Nanyuki until around 11 p.m. and left the car for the night at the main stage. He resumed work the following day, Sunday, 27th October 2019, at 4 a.m. and drove to Nyahururu and only got back to Nanyuki at 3 p.m. It was then that he discovered Syombua's phone on the passenger seat and handed it over to his supervisor at the 4NTE Sacco office. Let's take a moment to acknowledge that the driver's actions not only helped solve Syombua and her children's murder case, but also saved him from potentially going to jail. We've seen several cases in Kenya where innocent individuals were wrongfully accused of aiding and abetting murder simply because they bought or found and kept a murder victim's phone. The key takeaway here is, if you find a phone that you believe the owner might have lost, please hand it over with haste to the police or relevant authorities. Additionally, avoid buying a second-hand phone without proof of purchase from the owner, as it might be the one thing that costs you your freedom. Now back to the case. Regrettably, the investigating officer could not determine who left the phone in the matatu because the circle did not have a log of passengers who boarded the car that day. One theory is that Peter Mugure, being a highly trained army man, might have sneaked into the Nanyuki main stage and left Syombua's phone in the car, or possibly paid someone else to do so, with the intention of throwing the police off his trail. After retrieving Syombua's phone, which had been suspiciously left in the matatu, the investigating officer began to suspect that something sinister might have happened to her and the kids. And on Tuesday, 29th October 2019, he interrogated Syombua's family and friends in detail in an effort to unravel the mystery of Syombua and her children's disappearance. It was during this interrogation that the officer learned of the strained relationship between Peter and Syombua, which led him to also question Major Peter Mugure about the events leading up to his family's disappearance. And he also confiscated Peter's phone for forensic analysis, hoping to uncover more information. During the questioning, Peter alleged that he had invited his family to visit him at his residence at the Laikipia Air Base on Friday, 25th October 2019. He claimed he picked them up from the Nanyuki main matatu stage around 9 p.m. and drove them to his house at the Laikipia Air Base. They spent the night there, and the next day, he further claimed that Syombua called a friend from Timau, Meru, asking her to pick up the kids, to give Peter and Syombua some time alone to resolve their issues. The lady traveled from Timau, and at 9 a.m., Peter left the airbase to drop off Shanice and Prince Michael with her. Notably, Peter failed to disclose the name of the lady from Timau or where he dropped off the kids. After leaving the kids with the lady from Timau, Peter further claimed that he returned to his house shortly thereafter and stayed there with Syombua until 3 p.m. when they left for Kirimara Springs Hotel in Nanyuki for a late lunch and stayed there until 6 p.m. While at the hotel, Peter said he received an emergency call from the airbase. This call allegedly required him to send his family back to Nairobi, as they could not spend the night with him at the airbase. Consequently, he returned with Syombua to the Laikipia airbase to collect her belongings, before meeting the lady from Timau again to pick up the kids. Although he did not specify where this meeting took place, Peter claimed he then dropped Syombua, Shanice, Prince Michael, and the lady from Timau at the Nanyuki main matatu stage around 7 p.m., where he left them to board a matatu, and this was the last time he alleged to have seen them. Given the inconsistencies in Peter Mugure's statement, the investigating officer decided to interrogate the manager at Kirimara Springs Hotel to corroborate his story. The hotel manager confirmed that he had indeed seen Peter and Syombua at the hotel on Saturday, 27th October 2019. The investigating officer's next stop was at Peter's house at the Laikipia Air Base. The officer searched the house top to bottom but did not find any evidence at the house related to the disappearance of Syombua, Shanice, and Prince Michael. As the officer was leaving the airbase, he took the opportunity to interrogate the guards at the gate. The guards confirmed that Syombua had visited the premises with her children, and even when the investigating officer checked the visitor's book at the gate, it showed that Syombua had recorded her name and identification number upon both her arrival and departure at the airbase. However, the handwriting of the two entries was very different. From this discrepancy, it was clear to the officer that the person who signed out as Syombua was not Syombua, but rather Major Peter Mugure. The officer continued investigating the case, but the case involving the disappearance of Syombua, Shanice, and Prince Michael was blown open when a taxi driver in Nanyuki came forward with a crucial lead. On Friday, 15th November 2019, this taxi driver went to the Nanyuki DCI offices and reported that Peter had contacted him on Saturday, 27th October 2019, asking for 3 gunny bags to dispose of some luggage. The taxi driver questioned him about the type of luggage, but he refused to provide details. He also tried to persuade the driver to help him find suitable places to dispose of bodies, offering him a handsome payment, which the taxi driver declined. Coincidentally, at the same time the taxi driver was making his report at the DCI offices, Peter was at the Nanyuki police station following up on the missing persons report with the investigating officer. The officer received a call from the Nanyuki DCI office instructing him to interrogate Peter again. Acting on this instruction, the inspector questioned Peter about the taxi driver's allegations, and Peter did not leave the police station that day, as he was officially arrested as the main suspect. The final blow to Peter's story came when the detectives received the forensic analysis report of his phone. The report revealed that he had been in constant communication around the time his family went missing with Collins Pamba, a 21-year-old casual laborer at the airbase. Collins Pamba was arrested on Saturday, 16th November 2019. During his interrogation, Pamba spilled the beans, confessing to the events leading to Syombua and her 2 children's disappearance. As per Pamba's statement, on the afternoon of Saturday, 26th October 2019, he was in a matatu in Nairobi, awaiting to leave for Nanyuki. During this time, he received a call from Peter, who asked where Pamba lived. Pamba informed him that he resided in a rented room in the Ngitu Estate, Nanyuki. Peter then mentioned he had some work for Pamba at Laikipia Air Base, and he requested that he goes there so that Peter could show him the job. After the call, Peter reached out to Pamba 2 more times while he was in transit, asking about his whereabouts. Pamba arrived in Nanyuki around 5 p.m. After a few phone call exchanges with Peter, he went to meet him at Kirimara Springs Hotel in Nanyuki town. When Pamba arrived at the hotel, he claimed Peter took him to a spot behind the hotel. They had a brief conversation that involved Peter iterating that he had a job for Pamba at the airbase before instructing him to proceed there and wait for him. Pamba went on to allege that he arrived at the airbase and waited for Peter in the bar hall, and after Peter failed to show up, as he had promised, Pamba decided to return to his house in the Ngitu to rest. Pamba was at his house until 10:16 p.m. when Peter instructed him through a phone call to return to the airbase for the job. When Peter got to the airbase, he met Peter at the parking lot, and Peter led him towards his house, which was number A3. However, when they reached A3, Pamba said Peter did not open his door, but instead opened the door to the house number A4 that was directly opposite his house. The two entered the room. Peter closed the door and he proceeded to the bathroom. He then instructed Pamba to enter the bathroom as well, where Pamba saw some luggage wrapped in a plastic gunny bag and tied with a rope. Through the clear bag, Pamba could see that it was a body of a young girl lying on the bathroom floor. In the bathtub, Pamba also saw another body, this time a baby boy, also in a transparent gunny bag tied with a nylon rope. As expected, Pamba was visibly shocked. Peter told him not to be and explained that this was the job he wanted him to do. Peter allegedly also warned Pamba not to tell anyone about what he had seen, threatening to take his life if he did. In a carrot and stick approach, Peter promised to ensure Pamba's recruitment into the army if he helped him. To sweeten the deal, Peter asked Pamba to share his academic certificates with him after the job was done. Following Peter's instructions, Pamba helped carry the bodies to Peter's car, which was parked at the parking lot. After placing the two bodies in the car, Peter went ahead to ask Pamba to follow him back to the house. This time, Peter opened his house, A3. Since it was a single-room house, when they got inside, Pamba saw the body of an adult female behind the chairs, and Peter ordered him to help him put the body in a plastic gunny bag. After they were done, they carried the body to the car, and Peter then drove out of the airbase with the goal of disposing of the bodies. It is important to highlight that the reason why Peter was able to navigate the airbase with minimal scrutiny was because he was a major in the Air Force and he exploited his high-ranking position to cover his tracks. After they left the Laikipia airbase, Peter drove to the Ngitu area in Nanyuki, and on their way, Pamba asked him why he had committed the murders. Peter allegedly told him that he loved the lady, Syombua, and wanted to marry her as a second wife, but she was unfaithful and only wanted him to spend money on her and her children. Additionally, Peter alleged that Syombua had tried to interfere with Peter's first wife, even though the first wife had no problem with her. When they arrived in the Makaburini area of the Ngitu, Peter parked the car, turned off the lights, and went to a shallow grave that he had dug earlier. It was in that shallow grave that the two buried Syombua, Shanice, and Prince Michael. Pamba continued to narrate that after they finished, they returned to the car, where Peter warned him once more not to tell anyone about the incident. Again, in a carrot and stick method, Peter reassured Pamba that he was going to get him enlisted in the army and instructed him to take to him his academic certificates that coming Monday, 28th October 2019. Peter also told Pamba to go to the airbase the next day, Sunday, 27th October 2019, to clean his house and car. On Sunday, Pamba went to the airbase around 11 a.m. to wash Peter's car and clean his house as asked. After he was done, he claimed Peter paid him 4,000 Kenyan shillings and reminded him to bring his academic certificates the following day, a request that Pamba fulfilled. After Pamba delivered his academic certificates to Peter on Monday, 28th October 2019, he affirmed that he did not see him again because he was on leave. But Peter occasionally called Pamba, requesting him to go check on the grave and make sure it had not been disturbed. Consequently, Pamba claimed to have visited the grave twice and that Peter sent him 1,030 Kenyan shillings to buy a spade for tending the grave. After Pamba's confession, he led the police to Makaburini in the Ngitu estate, where they recovered the bodies of Syombua, Shanice, and Prince Michael from the shallow grave. This was 21 days after their gruesome murder. To determine how Syombua and her two children died, a post-mortem was conducted on Wednesday, 20th November 2019 at Nanyuki mortuary by Dr. Johansen Odur. The autopsy report revealed that Syombua died from head and brain injuries caused by being hit with a blunt object, while Shanice and Prince Michael succumbed to asphyxia from strangulation with a rope. Connecting the dots, we can theorize that Major Peter Maura Mugure strangled Shanice and Prince Michael in room A4, which was next to his own room, during the morning hours of Saturday, 26th October 2019, while Syombua was in the shower, and later that evening, after returning with Syombua from Kirimara Springs Hotel, he then took her life. I'm sure one question you might have is, why? Why did Peter Mugure take the lives of Syombua, Shanice, and Prince Michael? While he may have been bitter about the court order demanding he financially support Shanice and Prince Michael, there are also reports suggesting that he might have been struggling with his mental health. For example, one of his colleagues mentioned that he once saw Peter standing in the rain at the Laikipia Air Base, constantly checking his watch for over 30 minutes. The colleagues speculated Peter's mental health issues may have begun after he was grounded for crashing a plane during his pilot training, which dashed his dreams of becoming a pilot. However, these factors do not excuse his actions of taking his family's life. Surprisingly, Peter Mugure's family did not address his mental health challenges. Instead, they defended his character, claiming he was incapable of such a heinous act. In a bizarre twist of events, one of his sisters even tried to tamper with a witness to keep her brother out of jail.
Ongeangi sana, but ako tu na roho safi.
My brother has never smoked. Drinking is an honest man.
Venye namjua, he can't even kill a fly.
The case against Major Peter Mwaura Mugure continued to unfold when the police arrested one Maina Mwangi, an electrician, on Thursday, 28 November 2019. Allegedly, Maina had been in constant communication with Peter Mugure before, during, and after the murders. Major Peter Mugure allegedly asked Maina to help him kill Syombua, a request that Maina declined. Maina was released from police custody on the condition that he would testify as a state witness against Peter Mugure. He was not the only person Peter attempted to involve in his devious plans. A guard at a sewage plant in Nanyuki later reported that on the night of Saturday, 26 October 2019, Peter approached him, asking him if he could dump some waste in the sewage plant that night. Peter was reluctant to disclose to the guard the type of waste he intended to dispose, and since the plant closed at 6 p.m., he declined Peter's request. Joyce Syombua and her two children, Shanice Maua and Prince Michael, were laid to rest in Kitui on Saturday, 7th December 2019. The emotional farewell honored Syombua as a devout Christian and a prayer warrior, while her children were remembered as jovial and friendly. There was also a call for the alleged perpetrators to be held accountable. 2 years later, on Thursday, 13th May 2021, Collins Pamba, who assisted Peter Mugure in disposing of the remains of Syombua, Shanice, and Prince Michael, was sentenced to 5 years in jail. In handing down the sentence, Justice Florence Mushemi noted that Pamba, being only 21 years old and a junior to Major Peter Mugure, had been overwhelmed by the situation, especially since he had been threatened. The sentence also took into account that Pamba had provided crucial information against the main suspect, Peter Mugure, and had struck a plea bargain with the prosecution, agreeing to testify against Peter in court. Conversely, despite the overwhelming evidence against Major Peter Mwaura Mugure, nearly 5 years after the tragic deaths of Syombua and her children, the legal proceedings against him have been fraught with numerous twists and turns. Some argue that Peter has been actively trying to delay the wheels of justice. The case is still ongoing, and here are the key highlights. The shenanigans began when Peter's plea, originally scheduled for 5th December 2019, was postponed to 10th January 2020. This delay was due to Peter's pending mental assessment report that required completion before the case could proceed. The psychiatrist at Nyeri Referral Hospital needed to interview Peter's next of kin before finalizing the report. However, Peter's mother declined to make the journey from Kayole in Nairobi to Nyeri for the interview, citing that the journey was too long. Adding to the complexity, just days before the court hearing, Peter Mugure allegedly sent his sister Nancy to Kerugoya prison on 6th January 2020 to request Collins Pamba to retract his confession that he had helped Peter dispose of the bodies of Syombua, Shanice, and Prince Michael. Peter remained undeterred in delaying the court proceedings as much as possible, as later in the year, on 15th December 2020, Peter filed a petition to represent himself in court. He expressed dissatisfaction with his previous 3 lawyers, accusing them of underrepresenting and misrepresenting him. This request was denied on 10th June 2021 by Justice Florence Mushemi, who instructed Peter to secure a lawyer. 2 months later, in August 2021, Peter sued the Kenya Defence Forces, KDF, for wrongful termination. He alleged that he had been dismissed following a disciplinary hearing on 18th November 2019 for disobeying the KDF Act by allowing unauthorized guests at the airbase. Peter contended he had not been given adequate notice to prepare for the hearing. And in August of 2023, the Nyeri Employment and Labor Relations Court awarded Peter 2 million Kenyan shillings for unfair dismissal. Peter's latest attempt to delay the case occurred in June of 2024, with 23 witnesses having testified and only 2 remaining. Peter, through his lawyers, filed a civil suit against the Attorney General, the DCI, and other security agencies. He alleged that his constitutional rights were violated and argued he should have been tried in a court-martial since he was in the army. This matter remains pending in court, and we shall be sure to keep you updated on its progress. We sincerely hope that one day the family and friends of Syombua, Shanice, and Prince Michael will find justice. We also pray that the souls of Syombua, Shanice Maua, and Prince Michael will continue resting in peace. Thank you for joining us today, and we continue to urge you not to meet an estranged partner, especially one with a history of abuse, in private. If you must meet them, do so in a public place, and if possible, avoid in-person meetings altogether. Thank you for joining us today. If you appreciated this video, please give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel to be notified when the next video is up. Until then, please take care, stay safe, and always trust your gut.